Getting a GP appointment can be challenging these days, and you'd think that's because there aren't enough GPs. But what if I told you that couldn't be further from the truth? There are actually hundreds of GPs who are actually struggling to find work. How on earth have we got to this paradoxical situation? Let me explain. We know that the demand to see GPs is higher than ever, and there are many reasons for this. Patients are waiting longer to see their specialist appointments in hospital, so they end up going back to their GP to manage their complex condition. Younger people are also seeing their GP more, and this is partly due to a higher prevalence of conditions like anxiety and depression, but also because people are more anxious and concerned about their health in general. There is also an aging population that is living longer with long-term conditions. To take one example, if you have a heart attack these days, you're more likely to survive than in the past, but that also means that you might be living with the consequences of that heart attack, which means that you're on a few medications that keep your heart healthy, but also requires regular review by a GP. 2/3 of adults are now overweight, and this increases the chance of developing conditions like type 2 diabetes. So that's also more common, and this again comes with long-term monitoring. So with this higher demand, GPs have tried to manage this as best they can. And despite what the headlines may tell you, GPs are actually seeing more patients now than ever before. GP teams delivered 365 million appointments over the last 12 months. And that sounds like a lot, because it is. In fact, it's 57 million appointments more per year than before the pandemic. So this narrative that GPs aren't working hard enough or that it's harder to see a GP doesn't make sense when you look at the hard numbers. But how can we then explain why people constantly claim that it's impossible to see a GP? Very simply because the demand is astronomically high. People expect to see their GP more and more and more. And in fact, when you look at these statistics and compare that to our population size, you can see that on average, the equivalent of our entire population has a GP appointment almost 6 times per year. And if you want to know how much GPs are getting paid for providing all of this, you might want to watch this video, which I'll link to at the end. So we're still faced with this issue of high demand. So how do we fix this? I guess we need to offer more appointments, which means we need more GPs, right? And you would think that there aren't enough GPs, because that's what you keep hearing. And yes, we could certainly do with more. But here's something you probably don't realise. There are over 1,500 GPs who are struggling to find regular work. I'll say that again. We have an excess of GPs right now, and they cannot find regular work in the NHS. So you're probably wondering, why on earth are we in this absurd situation? It's because GP practices are not being given funding to hire GPs. Instead, they're being funded to give jobs to non-GPs, like nurses, paramedics, pharmacists, and physician associates. Now I want to be clear about this. I think that allied professionals play a really important role in general practice, and I think they certainly should be employed, but it shouldn't be at the expense of GPs, because that doesn't make any sense at all. Their jobs should be funded as well as GPs. And all of this means that 1/3 of these unemployed GPs right now are essentially being forced out of working in the NHS, and many of them are looking to either work abroad or stop working as a GP entirely. And they don't want to do this, but if the NHS doesn't offer them a job, they don't really have any other option. I'm sure you would agree this whole situation is a bit of a farce. Given the rising demand in appointments, we need more GPs, and we therefore need their jobs to be funded. If this is an issue that affects you, then please spread the word, because this needs changing. This funding model is just one reason why the NHS is being driven in the wrong direction. If you want to know more about this, check out this video. Or if you want to know how much GPs earn, you might be interested in this video. And I will see you next time. See ya.